Welcome everybody to Canhammer. Tonight's unboxing and review of Shadespire Spiteclaw's Swarm. Welcome back to Canhammer, everybody, your source for Shadespire from the Great White North. Tonight I am unboxing and having a quick look at all the cards of the new warband, Spiteclaw's Swarm. Very excited about these guys because I think that it's another nifty little warband that might pique my interest to complement my guard. I'm not sure if it's going to replace my guard. I guess we'll see, but certainly a very interesting warband in my opinion. And you know, ever since I was reading White Dwarves way back in the 90s, when I saw the old school sort of battle reports that they used to do there, I used to look at the Skaven and think, oh, it'd be cool to have an army of rats. I've since avoided the temptation to buy a Skaven army, but this might just be enough to scratch that itch, that 20-year itch. So anyway, let's get going. All right, so brown sprues, very cool. Of course, this kit has 5 models and some very tiny little rat models and rat tails and things. Very interesting. With some sewers and stuff. Very cool. Definitely going to enjoy putting these guys together. Here's the nice instructions as always. No color guide, which is weird. Normally there's a color guide, but there's no color guide on this one. There you go. And the cards. Alright, let's open these babies up. Alright, let's look at the warband as a whole. So there's 5 guys. 3 guys are like your Dongle brothers, or where did I hear that? Oh, Claim the City podcast. By the way, if you like Shadespire, you need to check out the Claim the City podcast. It's a great Shadespire podcast that I also listen to, and they do great content. So they call these kind of chaff guys the Dongle brothers or Dangle bros. So that's what they are. So they're like the petitioners of the Skaven, festering Skaven, hungry Skaven, and lurking Skaven. So, you know, the festering Skaven. So before we do that, so their inspiration condition is that you play a ploy on them. A player chooses this fighter when using a ploy. So any fighter, any player. So that is seemingly very easy to do, but we'll see how important it is for these guys to be inspired. If it ends up being like Guard, where it's not that big a deal to be inspired. So the Festering Skaven just has a 2 sword attack, and their base is 5 movements, so they're the fastest warband in the game so far. 1 dodge and 2 health, so these guys are like much faster petitioners. And when they inspire, they get 2 dodge, so that's better than guard, and they get an extra dice, so pretty good. Hungering Skaven gets a hammer instead of a sword, and gets 2 hammers, so same thing basically. Lurking Skaven is basically, he starts off with 2 dodge, and then gets up to 3 dice. So he's kind of like your sort of middle Dangle bro. And then we got Kree, the Almost Trusted. So this is like one of your lieutenants. So he gets a shield instead of a dodge, which is interesting. So he's more defensible than any of your Skaven. He gets a 2 damage attack with 2 hammers, not bad. And when he inspires, he gets 2 shields, and he's actually base of 3 health. So he is like your harder to kill Skaven. I mean, 2 shields is pretty good for a little rat. He doesn't do that much more damage. He does 2 damage instead of 1. Yeah, he's hard to kill. But then again, he only has 3 health, so most people still one-shot him. And then Scritch Spiteclaw, he's the boss himself. He has 4 health to start with, and he does a 2 hex attack with his spear. That is 2 hammers, 2 damage, so decent. It reminds me of the Warden. And if you roll at least one crit, it gets cleave, so that's pretty good. And he can place a friendly fighter that was out of action other than Crick. So other than this guy, so he can't res this guy. He can res the Dongle Brothers on any starting hex and remove all the wound counters. So any starting hex, that includes your opponent's hexes. So keep that in mind. I wish I could do that with my Spiteclaw guard, but I cannot. So how good that's going to be is to be determined, but clearly the designers wanted the contained and deny meta to not last for that long. So that's a very interesting ability. So he's a decent character. Probably not get one shot, but yeah. And you can't res the other good guy. You can only res the Dongle Brothers. So interesting. And when he inspires, he goes up to 3 damage. So it's pretty similar to the Warden. He gets an extra dodge and the same abilities. So interesting card. Overall, quite an interesting warband. The Spiteclaw guard does benefit from the fact that it has 2 extra guys that are both good fighters. So we'll see how these guys balance out. Let's look at their specific cards. Okay, Feast objectives. Score this in an end phase if all enemy fighters are out of action. 3. So I think that's unlikely. Arm's length. Score this immediately if your warband takes an enemy fighter out of action while they are adjacent to none of your fighters. Okay, so you would need an upgrade, or you would need your warlord to kill, because he's got the ranged attack. So too hard to do, probably. Brilliant, brilliant. Score this in an end phase if you score 2 or more other objective cards in the preceding action phase. Okay, similar to the guard one. Honed survival skills. Score this in an end phase if no friendly fighters were taken out of action in the preceding action phase. I wish I had that card. Leading from the back. Score this in the 3rd end phase if your leader is in your territory and not adjacent to an enemy. If your leader is in your territory and not adjacent to an enemy. That's probably fairly easy to do, but you have to hold it for only 1 glory. Probably not that useful. Live to fight another day. Score this in the 3rd end phase if the only surviving friendly fighter is your leader. Could do that. Lives are cheap. Score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters were taken out of action in the preceding action phase. Numberless Swarm. Score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 5 friendly fighters on the battlefield. Probably hard to do, but not impossible, given how fast they move. Scritch is the greatest. Yes, yes. Score this immediately if your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. Okay. Not too bad. Not too bad. Nothing too crazy in there. Upgrades. Swarm of Rats. So 3 swords, 1 damage on Crick, and it's a AoE attack. So, okay, what's his normal attack? His normal attack is 2 hammers, 2 damage. So just 1 damage all around. Maybe good, maybe not that good. Throwing Stars. This goes on Lurking Skaven. Lurking Skaven is the more defendable Dongle Bro. 3 hex, 3 swords, 1 damage attack. Pretty good, like your shade glass darts. And that plays well with this arm's length objective. So Whirling Halberd. So this goes on Scritch. And this is a AoE attack for his spear. 2 damage. Pretty good. Alright, Black Hunger. This goes on the Hungering Skaven. This fighter's attack action with a range of 1 have +1 damage and targets all adjacent fighters, friend and foe. Fighters do not provide support actions. Interesting. Very interesting. AoE card and +1 damage, which takes him up to 2 damage attack. But also hits friends. You might actually end up killing your own guys. So careful with that one. Bodyguard for a price. This goes on Crick. If Scritch is adjacent to this fighter, Scritch is on guard. Pretty good. Expendable. This goes on any of the Dongle Bros. During an attack action that will cause any damage to this fighter, you can remove them from the battlefield and deal 1 damage to their attacker. Interesting. Kind of like bone shrapnel, but yeah. Festering Blades. On a critical hit, this fighter's attack action with a range of 1 or 2 has +2 damage. Good. Flee. On Scritch, this fighter and one adjacent friendly fighter can make a move action. Both fighters must end their move further away from all enemy fighters. So this is a... oh, this is an action. That's an upgrade. Okay, so it just allows you to move 2 people instead of just moving 1. So that's okay, I guess. Actually, that might be good end of the game to get onto some home objectives because you can move 5, so pretty good. Skitter Scurry reaction. After any action that this fighter makes, you can push this fighter 1 additional hex. That's pretty good. Sneaky Stab Stab. You can push this fighter 1 hex before they take an attack action, though not when this fighter takes a charge action. Okay? That makes them move 6. Okay, not too bad. Some of those cards are pretty good. And here we go. Aversion to Death. Play this after an attack action that takes a friendly fighter out of action. Push up to 2 friendly fighters 1 hex. That's always useful. Play this if there are at least 3 friendly fighters adjacent to the same enemy fighter. One of those fighters can make an attack. Frenzied Stabbing. The first attack action with a range 1 and 2 has +1 damage. Good. Heightened Caution. Roll an extra defense dice for the first friendly fighter to be targeted by an attack. Momentary Boldness. Choose a friendly fighter adjacent to 2 or more friendly fighters. That fighter makes a charge. Choose a friendly fighter and put them on guard. Interesting. Choose a friendly fighter. They switch places with any adjacent fighter. Good. Scratching in the Shadows. Choose an enemy fighter and push to 1 hex. It's a push. Sudden Skittering. Double the move characteristic of the first friendly fighter to make a move action in the next activation. They may not make a charge action. Once they have moved, they cannot be activated again. So there's your super speed. What's the one that Korn gets? It's very similar. Double the move, but you can't do anything else. Very useful. There are always more. Choose 1 friendly fighter that is out of action other than Scritch and Crick. Remove all wound tokens and place them on any starting. So they're just like Sepulchral Guard, get a card that does the res. Skaven also get a free res card too. So very good card. Probably an auto include. Okay. Yeah, liking the feel of this deck. Interesting feel to it. We'll just have to play it and see how it ends up feeling compared to Sepulchral Guard. At first I thought that there would be more in their own cards themselves that promoted the sort of rezzing in your opponent's kind of gameplay, but there doesn't seem to be. You know, none of these their own objective cards seem to highlight that. Yeah, see, you would think that there was an objective in here saying, you know, hold all of your opponent's cards. There was a generic card, opponent's objectives. There was a generic card in the Dwarf deck that did that, but not a specific Skaven one, which is weird. So let's see what's in the generic. Alone in the Darkness for 2 glory. Score this in an end phase if there are no adjacent fighters on the battlefield. Huh. Interesting. That might be easy to score for everybody. Butchery. Score this in an end phase if your warband took 3 or more enemy fighters out. Not for guard, but obviously good for things like orcs. Cover ground. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a move action of 6 or more hexes. Wow. Definitely this plays for the Skaven. Or the Reavers, I guess. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more upgrade cards were played. It's kind of hard to play 3 upgrades because you need 3 glory to get it, and then you're spending you get 2 glory back. Master of War. Score this in an end phase if you scored an objective card, played a ploy card, and played an upgrade card in this round. Should be fairly easy. Miraculous Escape. Score this immediately if one of your fighters is the target of an enemy attack action with a dice characteristic of 3 that fails. 2 situational. No More Tricks. Score this in an end phase if you have no power cards in your hand. Again, situational. Overextended. Score this in an end phase if you hold every objective. Aha, here's the Claim the City. Another Claim the City. But I think Claim the City was Guard only. Anyway, this is, I think so, but so this would be the generic claim the city for 5 glory, hold every objective. Still haven't seen any cards that let us destroy any more objectives. Only one of those cards exists so far in the game. We'll have to see what comes up, but you really need to be able to destroy at least 2 objectives in order to make that a reasonable attempt. Although the Skaven obviously are better able to do this because they can res in the opponent's zone and move so fast. So I think this claim the city and maybe this 2 of these as your 3rd end phase type objectives goes into your deck. Interesting. Ready for a challenge. Score this in an end phase if all remaining enemy fighters have an upgrade. Interesting. Tactical Genius 3 to 5, 3, 4, 5. So we had 1, 2, 3 before. And the bigger they are. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action with an attack action that has a damage characteristic of 1. That should be pretty good. Petitioners doing that obviously gets you an immediate thing. That might be something to throw in my deck. Okay, a Shade Step. Fighter can move through other fighters during move action but end in an empty step, and that's an upgrade, not a ploy, so that's interesting. Awakened Weapon. Reroll 1 attack dice each time you make an attack. Acrobatic. If this fighter has dodge defense or a shield defense but is on guard, roll an extra defense dice. Hero Slayer. There's been a lot of talk of this already. 1 hex, 1 hammer, 4 damage. So 1/3 chance of insta-giving almost any guy in the game for an upgrade. That is definitely replacing Demonic Weapon. Such a good card. It's just like, boom, 30% chance you just insta-give somebody. Wow. I really, well, 50% because there's 2 hammers and 1 crit. So yeah, that is going in my deck for sure. Sprinter plus 1 move. I might need another one of those. Ethereal Shield. Defense goes up to, changes to shield. It's okay. Here's another key. This is objective 5, the Fractured Key. Trickster's Charm. If this fighter is on the battlefield, you can play a single ploy card at the beginning of each action phase. I really like this card. Before the person takes their first turn, you can play a ploy card. How many times have I wanted to play that ploy card at the beginning of the turn? So good, but it is an upgrade, but might be worth trying out. Here's the next Cataphragm's relic, Cataphragm's Hood. So if you go up to 4 relics now, after this fighter's action, draw 2 power cards. So that's pretty good. And the last one, 6 relics to gain 4 glory points. Can't do that yet. And Shade Glass Hammer. So this is a 1 range, 2 hammer, 3 damage attack. And on the critical hit goes up to 4 damage. Spicy. Spicy. That is also something to consider, maybe replacing the other Shade Glass. I don't know if it's as good as the one in the Dwarfs that gives you also the option of doing a 3 range attack. I have to look at it again. But these 2 new warbands have better Shade Glass weapons than the original 2 Shade Glass weapons. So definitely worth considering. Spicy. Okay, and the ploys. Curious Inversion. For the first attack action in the next activation, hammers are swords and dodges are shields. Interesting. That might be quite useful. Hammers become swords and vice versa. Oh, and vice versa. And that is a very interesting card. That turns weak skeletons into better hitting skeletons, and it turns poor defensive skeletons into stronger defensive skeletons. That's a very nice card. And then if people are hitting you with hammers, they become swords, and people defending with shields, they become, that's a very cool card. Last chance, reaction. Play this during an attack action that would take you out of action. Roll a defense dice. If the result would not normally be a success for this fighter, ignore the damage from that attack action. Interesting. Okay. So if you're on dodges and you roll a shield, then then fine. Not too bad. Momentary Madness. Choose an enemy fighter and roll an attack dice. If you roll a hammer or crit, make an attack action with them as if they were a friendly fighter. Interesting. I really like that. Although it's a 50% chance of working, it could really swing the game. People have to be next to each other though, but interesting card. Very interesting card. Sacrificial Pawn. Choose a friendly fighter. If they're taken out of action in the next activation, you gain glory. So you can be like, okay, kill my petitioner, at least I'll get a glory for it. I like that card. One glory can make the difference in a game. That is a good card. Spoils of Battle. Play an upgrade card. This doesn't cost you a glory. Again, very good. Blinding Flash. Play this during an attack action with a range of 3 or greater. The attack characteristics is changed to Sword 1. Not that good. Rebound. Reaction. Play this during an enemy attack action that would succeed on a 30% chance the attacker suffers the damage rather than the target. Cool. Rethink the strategy. Discard any number of objective cards and draw that number. That's pretty useful, especially if you're Stormcast. Shatter Shard. Choose an enemy fighter and choose one of their upgrades on an attack dice. On 50% chance that upgrade is discarded. And Desperate Gambit. When resolving the first attack action in the next activation, you and your opponent roll off. The winner chooses whether the attack fails or succeeds. Awesome. Okay, there's a lot of good cards in here that I like. Yeah. I like this, Balls of Battle. I like Sacrificial Pawn. I like Curious Inversion. Some useful cards in this deck for sure, for the generic, for everybody. So that's it. That's my review of the Skaven. Hope you enjoyed that video. We'll be coming up with some games very soon between Skaven and the new dwarves and the existing warbands, so stay tuned. So if you like what you're seeing today, just click the like button there. Please consider subscribing by clicking on the cane hammer symbol there, and please consider supporting us on Patreon by clicking on the link up there to support us in creating more content such as this. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.